There is no red, white, or blue in this country. The only color that matters is green, because we live in the United Corporations of America.
Hi guys, welcome to Status Coup. Oh man, we have some crazy stories for you guys today. Our first story that we'll be opening with is Trump doing public insider trading again, which he did earlier in April, but a similar pattern again, and we'll dig into that. We'll be talking about how the Democratic Party certain leadership members of the Democratic Party are trying to rebrand under Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson's abundance theory. We'll talk a little bit about what that looks like. It's basically trickle down Reaganomics, not shocking coming from the Democratic Party, but it's very much in line with what some of the things that the GOP is doing. So not great. We'll also be doing some highlights of some amazing coverage that Ashley Bishop did the last couple days for Status Coup News. She was live yesterday 2 times at 2 separate rallies, and we're going to show some clips from that as well. We'll also be talking about ICE arresting workers, union organizing workers. So we're looking at what's basically ICE being utilized as Pinkertons, as modern Pinkertons. And we'll talk about what that looks like as well. We'll be discussing Biden's interview on The View this week, where he makes some crazy claims about why Kamala Harris lost. And he's just totally out of it, and it's the same ridiculous mythology we've been hearing over and over and over again. We'll also be talking about how the GOP and the Trump administration are firing thousands of workers, especially in the national park sector, and aiming to privatize our national parks. So we did want to bring something up. We have merchandise now, additional merchandise. You guys have been asking for more t-shirts, more merch that you can buy on our website. And so if you want to pull up the Substack for us really quick, Colin, and we also have some new perks for Status Coup members, as well as a bunch of new, we have a bunch of new designs and merchandise available. The new perks are awesome. Colin's going to talk about it now. We'll talk about it later on in the show as well for anyone who joins later. But Colin, do you care to hop on and tell us a little bit about that? Oh, we can't hear you.
Yeah, so basically now for Status Coup members, now if you're already a member on the website, this already applies to you, but at the $5, $10, and $20 level, in addition to the other perks for being a member, you now will get just permanent discounts at 8%, 13%, and 18%, depending on your level, whether it's the $5 a month, $10 a month, $20 a month, or the $179 annual, which is in the same tier as $20 a month. And how you can get those codes and stuff is I'll link the Substack here as well. But you just log into StatusCoup.com, log in, and you highlight over the member section here, and then click on, it'll have the name of your level with the discount there. So you just click on that, and it'll give you your code with, and you just copy and paste that like you would any other code for when you check out. So yeah, and right now this is only for StatusCoup.com website members. There's no way currently to get this code to the other platform. So this is just an extra perk if you're through our website, which is also a bonus if you want to support Status Coup, because unlike being a member through YouTube or anything like that, where some of, like, I think what is it, 40% of your money goes to YouTube, on the website, only around 10% of your money goes to just a processing platform, and all the rest comes to just funding Status Coup. So that's just an additional perk on there. If you guys have questions or issues, just email info@statuscoup.com. But yeah.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, Colin. So please go check out the website and also sign up to be a member if you're not. We're doing a lot more on the ground coverage. We're looking to expand our staff. We're looking to grow. We have grown almost 150 new subscribers, but we also need to be able to support and pay people like Colin, folks like Ashley and others. So please sign up. Please support Status Coup if you can. And also check out our new merch. Got some pretty cool stuff in the store. So we'll move on to our first story here about Trump potentially doing insider trading. Do you care to pull up the tweet from Jordan, Colin, and then we'll check out the clip in just a minute. So Spencer Hockerman, I think that's how you say his name. If I am mispronouncing it, I apologize. Has been reporting, does some great coverage on this, but reported out in April about the Trump administration basically asking people to, or basically sending out a tweet that says, it's a great time to buy. He also said in an interview, it's a great time to buy, just 2 days before he set the tariffs that ended up tanking the stock market. And during that time, a ton of people bought stocks, including Marjorie Taylor Greene. And the thing is if you buy, the stock market dips down, you hold on to that stock as everyone else sells, and then it rebounds. You get rich. Buy low, sell high. He was sending out basically what Jordan called an insider trading bat signal, something that would be completely illegal for the rest of us to do. We can't even jaywalk in most cities without getting a ticket. And this guy's using the House of the Presidency to do rampant insider trading, which is absolutely asinine. If we could play that clip really quick, Colin.
You better go out and buy stock now. Let me tell you, this country will be like a rocket ship that goes straight up. This is going to be numbers that nobody's ever seen before. That's a very important element of all of this. You know, if we get that, if you don't, and the Democrats are fighting it only because they want to fight. They have Trump derangement syndrome. You know, if it was somebody else, they wouldn't fight. If you had a normal person, if you had some stiff sitting behind you, they'd be fine. But they have Trump derangement syndrome. You know, Senator Schumer's become a Palestinian. Welcome. I don't know when they're going to give him the ceremony, whatever the ceremony may be. It's terrible what's happened to the Democrats. So very, very important element of everything, of what we're doing, unrelated to today, but related in the sense that we'll do, if that passes, we'll do even more business with the UK. We'll have so much.
There's absolutely nothing funny about Trump telling everyone to go out and buy stocks just before tanking the stock market with intentional tariffs that are set to tank the stock market. You have to understand the whole scheme of buying low, selling high. This is essentially consolidation of monopolization. And there's also an element of this where just a month ago, cryptocurrencies are now being backed by the Federal Reserve. So there's an element of destabilizing the dollar in there, which could be good globally. I'm not going to argue that globally for other countries, it could be great that the dollar is destabilized. However, this is going to have massive impacts on small businesses, independent entrepreneurs, the folks that are doing gig work, that are just selling things online because it's the only way we can survive under this economy since our workforce has been gutted. What we are looking at is an intentional rigging of the system for the oligarchs to make as much bank as they possibly can. And we actually have an article here from the Business Insider that came out yesterday talking about how Marjorie Taylor Greene, for instance, has been doing insider trading right now. And it says Doge committee goes off the rails after Democrats suggest Marjorie Taylor Greene engaged in insider trading. In a hearing on Wednesday, Democrats suggested Marjorie Taylor Greene had engaged in insider trading. It caused the hearing to be suspended for 20 minutes. Greene's trades during the April tariff dip have drawn scrutiny from Democrats. Democrats suggested at a House hearing on Wednesday that Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene had engaged in insider trading, derailing the proceeding for 20 minutes. The Doge subcommittee, which is chaired by the Georgia Republican, was holding a hearing on transgender athletes in competing in fencing and other sports. So, of course, they're using this as sort of a shield for the other nefarious activities that they are doing, as if that's, that's the major issue and not them completely rigging the stock market and firing thousands and thousands of employees, federal employees, dismantling all of our social safety nets. As Democrats on the panel criticized Greene, two of the reps, Greg Cesar and Jasmine Crockett, both of Texas, brought up recent stock trades made by the Congresswoman. We're here because Chairwoman Marjorie Taylor Greene thinks that if she picks on vulnerable people like trans people, she can avoid having a discussion about the allegations of insider trading against her, Cesar said. Greene purchased tens of thousands of dollars in stock in an array of companies between April 2nd and the 9th, when President Donald Trump's tariff announcement and subsequent pause led to large shifts in the stock market. The Congresswoman has maintained that the trades were made by an independent financial advisor. That's something that my portfolio manager does for me, and he did a great job, the Congresswoman told the Georgia Recorder last month. Guess what he did? He bought the dip. Democrats have argued that Greene and other Republicans close to Trump may have known about the president's tariff moves ahead of time, allowing them to profit from non-public information. Well, the fact is that Trump did tell people blatantly, right now is the time to buy. And it was no secret that folks within the administration was speaking to certain members of Congress about what kind of tariff plans Trump had in advance. So this idea that she didn't know, I think, is bunk, or that someone independently did it for her without her knowing. I just don't. That's very hard to believe. When Crockett brought up Greene's trade, she displayed a poster featuring the Congresswoman's face. Let's look at fraud, Crockett said. We could investigate whether the White House and members of this subcommittee engaged in insider trading and market manipulation. Maybe it's a coincidence the chairwoman bought hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stock the day before Trump announced a 90-day pause on tariffs. But I guess we'll never know. All right, we can hop out of the article now. So if you guys understand what's going on here, it's that the Trump administration is setting these tariffs and then rolling them back. So you could buy stock while it's low, while the stock market's crashing. Then he rolls back tariffs and that inflates the price of stock. So you have several people, especially, regular working entrepreneurs or other folks that even rich people, of course, are being impacted by this. But regular everyday people whose 401ks and other things like that rely on the stock market. You'll have people that'll be dropping stocks because it's too high of a risk for smaller portfolios. But then you'll have multimillionaires, you have members of Congress, you have billionaires coming in and buying up all this stock so that they can invest in it as soon as Trump rolls back these tariffs and inflates these stock prices. So what the tariffs end up doing is end up creating a situation where it's very hard for people to buy products who are small businesses and others. It impacts small businesses and could close the door of small businesses and sole proprietorship. So people that just own their own singular business with one singular owner, no employees. But then at the same time, these publicly traded stocks are being inflated, and these larger companies can eat up smaller companies. And then we're seeing something that parallels what we saw in 2008 under the housing market crash, something that the COVID dip that we had in the stock prices, where everything got inflated. We had a massive inflation, and prices never did go back down because they realized people were still willing to pay those inflated prices. This is all part of that same type of scheme. It is literally robber barons taking from the pockets of workers. It's just more of that, just in a different way. With the rollbacks of Glass-Steagall, under the Clinton administration, and I know Steve Grumbine talks about this quite often, and so does Jordan. Our oversight of shareholders and the stock market and trading has been null. It's just not freaking there. And you've got people like Nancy Pelosi with portfolios up in the hundreds of millions of dollars who also do dirty insider trading. So it's not just Marjorie Taylor Greene. This is a bipartisan problem, but it's become even more inflated under Trump. Let's take a look at what just went on a few hours ago. I've got two different posts from Spencer Hockeman. If you could pull that up for us. Spencer says, call me naive, but I think there's an imminent de-escalation with China coming. We're just weeks away from full collapse of our economy without Chinese inventory. If chips start leaving China this weekend, they'll go to the U.S. just in time to avoid disaster. Yesterday, Trump said he wouldn't reduce tariffs on China under any circumstances. And if you could scroll down a little bit for us. Sorry about that. Today, he said he is very open to reducing the tariffs. He obviously knows his time is up playing the tough guy. Trump said buy stocks today, the same exact comment he made before he passed all the tariffs on the rest of the world on April 9th. Risk assets are relentlessly ripping. Bitcoin, stocks, even oil. Safe haven assets like gold and treasuries are selling. Really seems like the major market participants, whom we know have gotten tipped off by the administration before, know what's coming. Feel free to disagree with me. And then you can see here how container bookings from China to the US are falling sharply. Now down 48.6% as of April 21st. So we're looking at from the end of March, it was at 2.1% in the positive. It drops down to 6%, 21%, 44%, and then nearly cut in half. So you can argue, yes, we need to bring back manufacturing to the United States. True. But what's their damn plan for doing it? Where's the infrastructure to build businesses? And all we're hearing from people like Commerce Secretary Howard Lutkin is that AI is set to replace workers. You have Trump saying things just recently this week, multiple times. Children don't need one toy. Little girls don't need 20, 30, 40 dolls. They just need one or two dolls. This is a sacrifice the American people need to take. While at the same time, they're telling us to make sacrifices with no infrastructure for jobs while gutting hundreds of thousands of federal workers. They're also going on to create a situation where the administration, people tied to the administration, billionaires like Trump, Musk, Peter Thiel, Congress people like Marjorie Taylor Greene can take advantage of this buy low, sell high, false situation that the Trump administration is manufacturing. So we're not bringing work back to the United States. We're not yet. And there are no safeguards. They're looking at cutting Medicaid, looking at cutting Medicare. They're attacking Social Security. There is no minimum basic income or anything along those lines that has been offered for people while we're going through this dip that is going to impact every single family member, every single household. 65% of people in the United States live paycheck to paycheck and have a savings of under $500. Most of us are struggling. The middle class no longer exists. So, what is the plan to help shield us from what they're attempting to do when there's no infrastructure to even bring back these manufacturing jobs, and when we don't even know if they're bringing them back, and the United States is being alienated on the global stage? Bringing back manufacturing sounds great, but there's no plan for the fact that AI is replacing manufacturing jobs. Ashley and I both have covered that, as well as the fact that robotics are replacing people. We're doing mass deportations. There is no infrastructure for these businesses. We don't even know where they're going to go. So, what happens in the interim, other than people like Marjorie Taylor Greene getting rich off of speculative shareholder purchases? That's it. And we did have one more tweet from Spencer here. Oh yeah.
Give me 1 sec. I think I missed
Oh,
that.
I can't
Let me
hear
just
you.
pull it.
Oh, no problem.
Give me 1 sec.
Sorry, we added that. Jordan sent that to me right before the show. We were like, we knew it. So yeah, on top of everything else, now with the insider trading, it's a completely different dynamic. It's a manufactured dynamic, and that's part of the plan. The overall plan of dismantling our social safety nets, dismantling the government. It's part of the robber baron coup. New York Post is now reporting that the US is planning to cut Chinese tariffs from 145 to 50%. So they're going to cut tariffs after Trump just said today's a great day to buy while it's low because it's about to go back up again, basically, and then announces that the tariffs are going to be cut by 75%. 50% is a point where large businesses can absorb the tariff via price hikes and layoffs to protect profit margins, but most small businesses can't. So again, we're looking at small businesses closing up and the expansion of monopolization, consolidation, gutting small businesses so that, local restaurants will have to close, local entrepreneurships will have to close, sole proprietorships will have to close. And instead, the only places that we can go to are Amazon, Walmart, the big box stores, etc. It's much better scenario than what we currently have, albeit it is still economy net negative for the economy versus January. If you don't trust NYP, that's fair. Take it with a grain of salt. So this was from that's not from New York Times, is it? That was from New York Post. Okay. So the New York Post is reporting that they're going to cut tariffs to as low as 50%. But now, yes, I agree with Spencer. We don't 100% know if what comes from the New York Post is accurate. However, it wouldn't be surprising because Trump did this pattern in his last administration, and it's happening again now. And the last time that he sent out the corporate bat signal, time to buy, the next day he rolled back tariffs. So I don't know how many times they're going to do this churning over and over again, but we do know every time they do this churning, it consolidates more wealth for the 1% and the people at the top and other people that are invested in the stock market, whether through 401k, small portfolios, retirement portfolios, which is still only 25% of the public, 25% with larger amounts, and about 50% of the public, but 25% of that 50% is very small amounts of money considering, but it still can be people's life savings that are invested in this. the risk for them is so much higher than the risk for someone like an Amazon or a Google. And we're looking at this still, as he said, even at 50%, mass layoffs and the closing of small businesses. So that's where we're at on the robber baron coup and further consolidation of wealth. So, the gutting of government agencies, but also the gutting of our private financial sector and anything that's not, massive corporate hegemonies. So that kind of wraps into our next story about where does the Democrat Party stand on this, right? They've been corrupt with insider trading this entire time, and we know that they do the bidding of corporations just like the GOP. They have massive corporate donors. People like Nancy Pelosi have made themselves outrageously rich. I think last time I looked, her portfolio was worth $246 million, which is absolutely insane. Like, who's worth that much, who gets a salary from being a senator? So obviously she's been capitalizing on, or being a member of the House. So obviously she's been capitalizing on insider information. That's a no-brainer there. But Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson recently released a book, and both of them they did like op-eds and things like that. They're well-known opinion journalist, I guess you can say, for the New York Times. However, neither one of these dudes are economists. They're not organizers. They haven't worked on policy. I mean, I've done more organizing and policy than Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson have, and that's just a fact. But these guys released a book with sort of a prescription of the models of the economy moving forward. But it's very similar to something like a Praxis, if you guys have heard of that, from Peter Thiel, or Curtis Yarvin, another one of these guys that are within the right wing that sort of wants to create their own cities, their own company towns, like the one that Elon Musk just launched. Ezra Klein has a similar model in his book Abundance, where it's all about rolling back. Sorry, just one moment. It's all about rolling back oversights, rolling back regulations in order to create more housing, to build more, which can be good because there are some unnecessary regulations and red tape to building that can be excessive. That is true. However, he offers no prescription for when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to quality of living, when it comes to pay, when it comes to workers' rights. None of that. It's just roll back regulations and start building. And if you build it, they will come, and we'll just naturally have this egalitarian system in place. So let's take a look at what the Democratic Party is doing. Can you pull up the Politico article for us? House Democrats start abundance movement inspired by caucus. It comes amid a broader conversation in the party about its post-2024 messaging failures of governance in blue cities and blue states. And I've talked to you guys about, anyone that's here has seen me talk about Ezra Klein and abundance and sort of this rolling out a couple months ago. And what I told you guys is that I believe that it was a foundation potentially for a new platform within the Democratic Party that is trickle down Reaganomics, right? And we called it. That's exactly what they're doing here, is a Reaganomics type a Reaganomics type trickle down economic model. So, House Democrats are getting Ezra Klein pilled, according to this Political article. A bipartisan group of lawmakers led by Josh Harder, California, is launching a new, roughly 30-member bloc that's claiming inspiration from the abundance movement. It's a book written by Ezra Klein. There is no movement. Championed by the liberal commentator Klein. This is a moment that has been building for a while, Harder said. I think there's been a lot of simmering interest in permitting reform and making sure that things are built faster, better, cheaper. But now I think over the past year or so, it's really reached a boiling point on both sides. It's the latest sign that some Democrats see the abundance movement's ideas as something that sprung around Ezra Klein's book Abundance, co-authored with Atlantic writer Derek Thompson, as a solution to the party's woes. The subject is not without its critics. Some progressives have pushed back on the proposals, which they argue fail to focus on what they see as larger problems like the concentration of power. But in spite of these detractors, Harder said his new caucus has a broad swath of support. I think they may be the only active, of course, the only active bipartisan caucus doing work that has folks across the ideological rainbow, Harder said. The bloc's emergence comes amid a broader conversation among Democrats about their post-2024 messaging and potential failures of governments in blue cities and states. Harder said he'd read the book and had been in touch with Klein, who also spoke at the Senate Democrats' private gathering this week. Okay, I think we could pull the article down now. But this is so ridiculous. So they run on this neoconservative platform, right? Kamala Harris runs on deregulation. She ran on this co-opted YIMBYism. Yes, in My Backyard is a great movement when it started, but it's been co-opted by developers that are literally investing in YIMBYism. It's been co-opted by libertarians, but not by austerity libertarians. So it's this idea of deregulation will solve everything, and then we can build, and it's very, very centered on wealthy blue areas. It's very, very centered on urban areas, so it kind of leaves places completely behind, like Appalachia, and also even talks about defunding housing for rural areas, for places like Flint, for places like Southeastern Kentucky, West Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, the Rust Belt. And we're looking at focusing on just a few centralized metropolitan areas, which, yes, we need housing there too. But we not only need housing, this whole concept completely leaves out the fact that corporations are the freaking problem. That these robber barons, these multi-billionaires are the problem. The idea that Ezra Klein has and that these Democrats have are we just need to find our own tech bro billionaires, the good guys. We need to change their mind and they need to start working for us because obviously Kamala Harris's plan failed because it was too woke. That's another thing that they say. But that's bullshit. And, Biden, and in just a minute, we'll show a couple clips from that, but Biden had a similar bullshit excuse for why Kamala Harris lost. She lost because they ignored economic problems, for one, and for two, polling has clearly showed that funding to Israel during this genocide was part of the reason that Kamala Harris lost. So the refusal to acknowledge the investment in Israel, despite the investment here, while running cover for war crimes, while gaslighting us for a year and a half or more, while at the same time telling us that the economy is great, everything's going to be great. Let's rehabilitate the Chinese. Let's have the most lethal military in the world. This is just neoconservatism, Heritage Foundation bullshit, taken and repackaged and branded as liberal politics, which has always been kind of liberal politics. You guys know that. But it's repackaged under the Democratic Party umbrella. It's basically the Democratic Party running even further right. which they've been doing forever. We just a few minutes ago discussed how Bill Clinton eroded Glass-Steagall, which was the last protections against the stock market, doing what against Trump and venture capitalists and vulture capitalists doing what they're doing right now with the stock market. So it's even more of that. So it's not surprising that this is a bipartisan caucus. It's a bipartisan caucus of let's give billionaires more money and let's make the underclass forever renters. And let's deregulate everything and let's call that the saving grace. So that's that story. And I do want to remind you guys, Ezra Klein is not an economist. He's not an activist. He has not, there was some research that he'd done for his book, and I've read it, and I'm going to be working on a review, an in-depth review and debunking of his book. But dude he's not an economist. He's not an activist. He's not a housing expert. He's a political pundit who's covered a lot of different topics, but has essentially been part of the establishment machine, out of touch, rich elite, not even talking to really people on the ground. So, all right, let's take a listen to some stuff from Ashley's coverage this weekend. Yesterday, actually, she did 2 protests. So I'm sure she's tired today. She's doing amazing work. She's covered 2 protests live on the ground. And one of them was a mega millionaire blockade of like one of those swanky Manhattan Institute fundraiser. Some of the same people that tried to cover up and demonize Columbia protesters. So folks showed up there to protest this mega donor fundraiser. I'm sure some of Klein's buddies were at this fundraiser. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some Abundance folks there. But let's take a look at let's take a look at a couple of clips from that. And she spoke to some people on the ground, and I thought her interviews were great. Do you have a couple of those for us, Colin?
We're going to hang on a second. Some attendees are trying to make it through the line of protesters into Cipriani's. So again, someone in a pink ball gown trying to break through the line of protesters to get into Cipriani's. And it looks like she was successful.
So everyone here, I'm going to give you a warning now. You're going to have to move because you're blocking the entrance into the place. You're going to be arrested if you don't move, okay?
The NYPD is, if you can hear them, giving another warning to the protesters that are blocking the entrance to Cipriani's. SRG have arrived and are starting to be arrested now.
Everybody back.
NYPD forcing people back away from the individuals who are blocking the entrance with their banner, locked arms, as they're being arrested.
Singer buys, people die. Singer buys, people die. Singer buys, people die. Singer buys, people die.
Guys, you got to move. I have to have an opening here for people to get in. Everybody here.
Singer buys, people die. Singer buys, people die. People die. Singer buys, people die.
All right, as you can see, NYPD has cleared out the protesters that were blocking the entrance.
People to get in. What's up? If you're looking to get arrested, you can stay here, but I'm going to need this open so people can get through. That's what the barriers are here for. You got both sides you can get on, okay, guys?
Sorry, must have muted me. I love that they're blocking the rich people in their fancy ball gowns going to this donor dinner to hobnob with the wealthy. The places that we're locked out of, where the plans are made, basically a bunch of mini Bilderbergers, where rich people go to rub elbows. It's good to see people protesting these kinds of events. Did we have a second one of that protest, or did that include both clips, Colin?
Because they're stealing from me. I'm on Social Security, and they want to up my taxes so that these assholes can get away without paying anything. And when they consume other resources, so that's one reason why I'm here. It's just they should be paying more than I pay. They can afford it. And they're, like I said, they're using up more resources than I use. So that's why I'm here.
Absolutely. That is a very good reason.
I'm very angry. These people should be ashamed of themselves for walking in front of us with this. So that's why I'm here.
I appreciate that, and I think our viewers will appreciate your anger and everything that you said. It's a good reason to be here. What are you hoping to happen tonight?
Well, it would be nice if all of us got arrested, but what do I hope happens? I'm just here to express my anger and how I disagree with what Trump's policies are, and these people are supporting him. So that's, he's just such a, I don't know what word.
He is uniting everyone in hatred.
Well, that's true. I go to a lot of demonstrations, and this is one of the, usually there's 10 people, 20 people. Look at all the people here today. So been a resurgence. There's been a resurgence of people coming out on the street to express their anger and their disappointment, and hopefully, though my representatives haven't listened to me, hopefully these guys will be paying attention. There's more people out on the street, so I don't know. I've been a long-time activist. I don't know what I hope for, really. I just have to be here to express my anger. And these people have no shame coming in front of us like this, and especially with people when I'm talking about cutting food stamps, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, and these people are walking in, these people are walking in like nothing. They should be ashamed of themselves.
She was really ready to put it all on the line. She's like, maybe all of us will get arrested. People are just sick and tired of the wealthy that are using us up and spitting us out. Like she said, cuts to Medicaid, cuts to our social safety nets. They're even talking about, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, privatizing our public park system. So the little bit that we do have, they're gutting it and taking it away bit by bit by bit, and doing it rapidly now. I mean, they've been doing it for decades now. We've talked about how the FDA, the USDA, all these government agencies needed to improve, didn't do enough. And now we're seeing the complete dismantling of that. I loved her, and I loved what she had to say. And I'm so glad that Ashley was on the ground covering this. She also, Ashley was so busy yesterday. She also covered a pro-Palestine protest at Columbia University. And as in usual form, the protest itself was peaceful, but guess who escalated? The police. The police escalated. They always escalate, and we have shown this over and over again, hundreds and hundreds of times in our live coverage on Status Coup. But let's take a look at some of what went down at the Columbia protest yesterday when the police started getting feisty, making arrests, and getting physical with protesters.
Get out of the street! Get out of the street! Back up! Back up! Back up! Back up! Get out of the street! Back up! Back up! Back up! Back up! Get off the street! Get off the street! Back up! 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 Stay behind me. Back up! Look at my shoe, man! You're breaking my fucking arm! So move! Hey, back up! Back up! Back up, please. Back up. Shame on you! Who are you to defend your head? Shame on you! Fuck you, pigs!
Just manhandling protesters. You could hear that. You could hear that gentleman screaming out, "You are breaking my fucking arm." And there was no care in the world as to how they were handling him, dragging him onto a paddy wagon. We also have another clip from outside of
Something happened to your audio. No. I don't know. Might need to unplug and replug it, sounds like.
Okay, let's see. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
Oh, never mind. It went away again. I'm not sure. It switches to like a squeaky sound. Do you have maybe temporarily might need to switch to your webcam mic or something? Just bear with us, guys. This is classic Status Coup, as many of you know. While you guys are waiting, make sure you guys smash that like button and share this where you can. And like we mentioned before, we have a new perk for Status Coup members. If you go to statuscoup.com/join, you'll be able to enjoy, in addition to the normal member perks, discounts at 8, 13, and 18%, depending on the level. How are we sounding?
Let's see. How is this?
Oh, that is good.
Must have been a glitch.
Fabulous.
Restream. I'm so sorry about that. Alrighty, let's see. Where were we at? We were talking about the protest at Columbia. And according to Ashley and Jordan, NYPD arrest protesters putting 2 protesters on a stretcher. So that's absolutely crazy. And randomly throwing people on the ground. And this was at a Columbia University protesting Israel's new plan to seize Gaza. And if we want to play a couple clips from that, from the Columbia, another clip from the Columbia protest. So, of course, as in true form with the NYPD were the ones getting aggressive. Thank you so much to Ashley and John Farina for covering this on the ground. They were there for several hours, and Colin will be releasing several clips and segments from the coverage at the $50,000 GOP fundraiser that we saw earlier on, where she was able to talk to a lot of folks that were protesting that fundraiser, as well as these Columbia protests. So please, if you're not already subscribed, hit the like button, the notification button, or hit the notification button, and you'll get notifications for when those videos come out, because the algorithms love to suppress some of our coverage, especially of these protests. So it helps to get those notifications if you want to be informed and notified when we are doing on the ground coverage like this live, but also when we do our recaps and shorter sort of segments from that as well. So please hit that notification button to be able to see more of this content. But the police do seem to be still in the same kind of trajectory that they have been with these pro-Palestine protests, and aggressively handling them. And as you guys remember, a couple of weeks ago, we covered how Mayor Eric Adams kind of made a deal with the Trump administration to let ICE and other agencies start rounding up people in New York, so that he could have his corruption charges rolled back. So we're seeing similar, which Eric Adams was right there the first time we had the massive police militarization against Columbia protesters, NYU protesters, and other pro-Palestinian protests earlier this year. So this is nothing new. They're on the same trajectory. They seem to be even escalating. So keep going out, keep hitting the streets. We'll keep covering it, and we'll keep bringing you what's happening.
And actually, we have let me click this thing here. Speaking of the student protests for Palestine and stuff like that, John is actually recording an event right now where students are doing a protest. So I actually have a clip I can share here.
Awesome.
With
They're all the same. NYPD, KKK. NYPD, KKK. They're all the same. They're all the same. Move pigs, get out the way. Move pigs, get out the way. We know you're Israeli train. We know you're Israeli train. Move pigs, get out the way. Move pigs, get out the way. Pepper spray, pepper spray. We know you're Israeli train. 400,000 dead. 400,000 dead. 400,000 dead. You're arresting us instead. 400,000 dead. 400,000 dead. You're arresting us instead. You're arresting us instead. We know you're Israeli train. Get out the way. Move dogs, get out the way. We know you're Israeli train. We know you're Israeli train. Move dogs, get out the way. Move dogs, get out the way. We know you're Israeli train. We know you're Israeli train. Move dogs, get out the We are fighting genocide! What the fuck does that make you? You are supporting genocide! You coward! You coward!
And if it was, it might have been hard to tell, but at the very beginning, the protesters were in front of the car, and the officer actually drove a couple feet to kind of push them back inside the car.
Yeah, I saw that. And you can just see how they just push people down onto the ground. at some point, it has been for a long time, it's beyond just I'm doing my job, I'm following orders. It's just as much on these police who are pushing back any kind of dissent. They're still there. They're still abusing people. There is absolutely no excuse. Okay, we are going to move on to the next story where we're also talking about jackboots, but these jackboots are ICE. And ICE has recently arrested workers involved in a landmark labor rights case. So what we're looking at is the specific targeting, and this has happened multiple times now, where specific union organizers have been targeted and deported. So there's this idea that the right wing always spends, and you even hear from some Democrats, and that is that, this like the immigration, the crackdowns on immigration are to protect migrant workers from being abused, and for better pay for all workers, and for to bring back jobs for quote unquote American citizens. But what we're looking at here are union organizers, some of them who have legal visas, being targeted by ICE specifically on a list in order to quell union organizing of workers that include citizens as well, which if they're just migrant workers, that's enough. Migrant workers should be able to fight for unionization as well. I think we could all agree on, or most of us could agree on that. However, the ICE is now being used as modern day Pinkertons. And if you guys don't know who the Pinkertons were, they were a police force that was used to crack down when people were rising up against coal company towns, when workers were rising up, steel workers were rising up in the early 1900s. The Pinkertons were a paid private police force that worked in line with the government in order to go and crack down on workers, crack down on unions. They were responsible for several deaths, beatings, violence, but we're seeing a sort of modern day Pinkertons with being utilized through ICE, with lists of people that these businesses are giving ICE of union organizers that they're targeting specifically because they're causing problems for these businesses. So this isn't a pro worker ideology or program that ICE is doing here. Right now, literally, ICE is being mobilized against people unionizing. Let's pull up that Intercept article, Colin. Take a look at what they've been doing. They actually had a list. ICE arrest workers involved in landmark labor rights case. Let's take a look here. In Western New York on Friday, targeted a group of immigrants. ICE targeted a group of immigrants involved in a landmark statewide effort by farm workers to unionize. On Friday morning at 9:30 a.m., federal agents in unmarked cars and bearing no agency insignia pulled over a bus in Albion, New York, about 35 miles west of Rochester, and took 14 people of Lynette and Sons Farms into custody. All of the detainees who had hailed from Mexico and Guatemala were year-round employees of Lynette Edit and Sons Farms, a family-owned business in nearby Kent, New York, which had been locked in a multi-year battle to prevent workers from unionizing. The company is one of 5 agricultural businesses that, together with a state growers association, have tried for years to overturn or chip away at New York's 2019 farm labor law. The law enshrined protections for the right of farmers, whether seasonal or year-round, to seek union representation. Several of the workers taken into custody on Friday have been active in efforts to unionize year-round employees, including at least one who has spoken publicly in favor of joining the United Farm Workers of America, according to Elizabeth Strader, Director of Strategic Campaigns for UFW and Storied Labor Union. We are concerned at the appearance of targeting public pro-union worker leaders, Strader said. Most of the workers detained on Friday hail from Mexico or Guatemala. The raid did not appear to be a broad sweep, but rather a targeted enforcement aimed at specific people, according to sources who have been in contact with the family and spoke to The Intercept on condition of anonymity to candidly discuss a sensitive legal situation. At first, we thought they were enforcing a deportation order, that they had one person that they're looking for, and then everyone else got dragged in. That kind of standard, said one of the people with knowledge of the raid. But this was strange because they actually had a list of most of the workers on the bus. In a video of the raid posted on social media, the agents could be seen dressed in civilian clothes, typical ICE, and wearing tactical vests with patches that said police, as in common U.S. immigration and customs enforcement raids. The agents did not identify themselves, a source close to the families of the detained workers, but a spokesperson from ICE later confirmed that its agents had made the arrest. According to the spokesperson, all 14 were in the county without authorization, and 3 of the individuals had pending removal orders. Following an inquiry from The Intercept, Lynette, which grows green beans, cabbage, squash, and other vegetables and foodstuffs, issued a statement on Monday morning expressing concerns for their employees. We are deeply troubled by the manner in which this enforcement action was carried out and the impact it had on our team and their families. Lynette and Sons had no prior knowledge of the raid and no contact with ICE beforehand, the company wrote in a statement, which appeared as a sponsored post on a local news site. We call on elected officials and community leaders to ensure that all enforcement actions are conducted with transparency, due process, and human dignity. As of Monday evening, more than 72 hours after the raid, the location of the detainees was not yet clear. ICE detention records show that at least one man is being held at the Buffalo Detention Facility in Batavia, New York, and 2 women are being held at Niagara County Jail in Lockport, New York. Sources close to the family said that at least 2 other men are also being held at Batavia, but have not yet been logged in the system and have not spoken with lawyers. The remaining 9 detainees are unaccounted for. An ICE spokesperson did not respond to specific questions about the location of the detainees or the reason for the raid. ICE does not conduct raids as part of its routine daily immigration law enforcement efforts, the spokesperson wrote. Instead, ICE enforcement resources are based on intelligence-driven leads. So where are they getting these leads from? And ICE officers do not target persons indiscriminately. As for its part, Lynette forcefully rejected any notion that the company had any role in the raid. We strongly reject the United Farmer Workers' irresponsible and self-serving public claims that suggest that these workers were targeted in retaliation for union activity, the company said in a statement. These claims are categorically false. Okay. We can close this out now, Colin. Okay. So the owners of the farm themselves are claiming that it was not targeted. However, they did have a list, and it is curious where this list is coming from and why specifically that union leaders are being targeted, whether it was the farms themselves or whether it was, done through other agencies that are targeting people who have filed to do union organizing. It's unknown, but it is suspicious that this has been happening over and over again, where specifically union leaders are being targeted to be removed by ICE. These tactics send a chilling effect, whether they're being deported because of their connection to unions or not, we have ICE in the middle of New York detaining people well within the 100 miles border, taking them off of buses. Same thing, not showing ID, rounding people up. The same problems we've been seeing over and over again. And this story just highlights it once again, with nearly a half a dozen people unaccounted for. More than a half a dozen people unaccounted for by ICE. And these are people that were trying to build a union. So either way, whether intentional or not, this is absolutely union busting. Whether it was a list given to them intentionally, which it very well could have been, this is union busting regardless. All right. Let's take a look at, we're completely shifting gears now. We've kind of been talking about things along a similar arena, but we're going to talk about Biden on The View. Now, this was absolutely, I watched the whole thing and it was absolutely crazy. You know, he was still out of it. Jill was talking for him half of the time. We were one of the first shows to talk about his cognitive decline that was very obvious in office, and how Jill Biden seemed to be calling some of the shots. I mean, that was just obvious by her speaking for him, and reports coming from out of the White House that, yeah, she was in the caucuses making the decision. She was behind the scenes, working with White House staff and others. So she was with him on this interview with The View, and he was way out of it. He also, of course, made excuses for why Kamala lost, and some of his reasoning for things was just out there in the atmosphere, similar to what the DNC has said, but I want to hear it from his own mouth. So we do have a couple of clips from him. If you could pull one of those up for us, Colin.
Mr. President, since you left office, there have been a number of books that have come out, deeply sourced from Democratic sources, that claim in your final year there was a dramatic decline in your cognitive abilities. In the final year of your presidency, what is your response to these allegations, or are these sources wrong?
They are wrong. There's nothing to sustain that. Number one. Number two, you know, think of what we're left with. We're left with a circumstance where we had an insurrection when I started. Not since the Civil War. We had a circumstance where we were in a position that the pandemic, because of the incompetence of the last outfit, end up over 1 million people dying. 1 million people dying. And we're also in a situation where we found ourselves unable to deal with a lot of just basic issues, and which I won't go into in the interest of time. And so we went to work, and we got it done. And you know, one of the things that and
Alyssa, you know, one of the things I think is that the people who wrote those books were not in the White House with us.
So the people who wrote the books on Joe's cognitive decline were not in the White House with us, Jill says. But at the same time, you know, he talks about 1 million people dying, and yes, that happened. But hundreds of thousands of people died under Biden's watch too. And he rolled back COVID protections before we were in a good place. We're still having people die from COVID, even now. And now we have other outbreaks and pandemics, such as the measles pandemic. The bird flu started before Biden was out of office. So that's just, it's ridiculous to completely blame everything on the past administration, as horrible as the Trump administration was, and yes, created a tremendous amount of our problems. The Biden administration was also complicit in a lot of the problems that we had. I mean, he promised $2,000 checks that we never got, rolled back our moratoriums on renter protections and on evictions. He also rolled back the extensions that we had on. He did try some stuff with student loans, but that was milquetoast band-aid stuff that ended up getting kicked out by the Supreme Court, which he anticipated and did it anyway. And also, it just wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. He buttressed and left room for the Trump administration to come in and do what they are doing now. And it's very arrogant of him not to have any reflection on how the party could improve or how he could improve, but instead, digs in his heels, which isn't helpful at all with the current fascist coup we have taking over the country. It's more of the same, and it's the same kind of bullshit of never taking accountability for anything. Politicians never taking accountability for what they do, which has set the stage for the fascism that we have right now. If we could play the next clip, this is also crazy. He talks about why Kamala lost.
So why
let's take a listen. He also
do you
said if
think
he had
the
ran,
vice
he'd
president
won.
lost, and were you surprised?
I wasn't surprised, not because I didn't think the vice president was the most qualified person to be president. She is. She's qualified to be president of the United States of America. Right. But I was surprised. I wasn't surprised because they went the route of the sexist route, the whole route. I mean, this is a woman. She's this. She's that. I mean, it really. I've never seen quite as successful and a consistent campaign undercutting the notion that a woman couldn't lead the country, and a woman of mixed race.
Yeah.
And
So, according to Biden, it was just simply that Kamala Harris was a woman and a woman of mixed race. Why she lost. The country wasn't ready for that yet. And I'm sure there's some element of there are a portion of people in our country. Obviously, misogyny and patriarchal issues are still a problem. But it's bullshit to completely lay blame on that being the main reason for her loss, and not the fact that they refused to acknowledge where we were economically. She said she would still continue down the same path Biden was going to continue down economically on all policy fronts. She was digging in her heels and running on neoconservative policies such as, I'm going to have a stronger border control than Donald Trump. I'm going to have the most lethal military. We're going to run with Dick and Liz Cheney as our main backers. So all of this combined with their refusal to acknowledge the mass atrocities and war crimes Israel was carrying out while that administration was funding those atrocities are all part of the reason that she lost. And Joe Biden is still denying that, while at the same time claiming, yeah, I mean, if I had ran, I would have probably won. Which is absolutely just nonsense. It's nonsense. But it just shows you where the Democratic Party is. And I question, we showed that to you just to show kind of where they are, but I question, why is The View even having him on to have an assessment about the situation whatsoever? I mean, yeah, he's a former president, but we already know where he stands on this, and it's nowhere near where it's supposed to be. And I did see a comment from Travers Wolf earlier that was cracking me up. And he said something along the lines of Jill Biden was a great president. Here we go. Jill was an awesome president. Hilarious. But yeah, that's essentially what we got is a puppet on a string there toward the end. And so digging in his heels isn't helping anybody. All right. So that kind of moves us on to, Biden set up the stage for Trump's horrible executive orders. We covered in Cop City while we were there RICO charges and domestic terrorist charges being used against Cop City protesters in Atlanta. That was under the Biden administration. Under the Biden administration, you still had masked ICE agents. You still had ICE agents running around not showing their identification. You had crackdowns and demonization of pro-Palestinian protesters. You had the Biden administration going after college campuses and pressuring them to close down the encampments. You had Democratic governors that were threatening to send in the National Guard. So we still had some of the patterns that were, but what I would call buttressing for the current fascism that we are experiencing right now under this rogue, crazy coup that we have under what I would consider authoritarian leadership under Trump. But it didn't come out of nowhere. Some of these precedents were set before. And right now, what we are looking at is the complete gutting and dismantling of almost every government agency. And one of those agencies that we're looking at, and that goes in line with a couple of the executive orders that came out from Trump, where he is now wanting to privatize. The GOP has been trying to do this for a while. This is in Project 2025, but is to privatize everything that's public works, everything from the UPS to our private parks. And they really, really want to privatize our private parks in order to frack, in order to do oil drilling, in order to mine for natural resources. So basically, turning our public parklands on a platter, rolling us all the way back to Theodore Roosevelt era, before public parks and state parks were founded, right? So here's an article about their plans to cut not only national parks, but regional staff, local scientists are also getting cut. We're talking about tens of thousands of workers being cut. Can we pull up I believe it is, let's see, I don't actually see that. Do we have a tweet there to pull up, Colin? I don't see it in the doc. Ah, there we go. Yes, thank you. Interior Department laying off thousands imminently. National parks will be hit hard, with HQ regional staff and local scientists bearing the brunt of cuts. Concerns over impacts for busy season. Layoffs follow severe voluntary incentives and reductions. Is there more to that? Or is that basically all? Okay. Now, we also have an article from Reason Magazine. If you could pull that up for us, Colin. Abolishing the National Park Service. And this is from back in December. And this sort of highlights their plan. And that is now we are seeing this plan being carried out. And this is by Reason Magazine. This is an argument for gutting our National Park Service. But I wanted to read it for you guys so that you can understand what their plan is and how they're packaging it as a good thing, even though it's not. So keep that in mind while I'm reading this article. This isn't the Status Coup stance on this. This is me reading an article from the conservative vantage point to show you to show everybody kind of where their thinking is and what is happening right now, because this was written in December before Trump took office, but this is their goals and their plans for what they're wanting to do. Atop of the highest peaks in the eastern United States sits a picturesque example of why Americans' national parks could be if only the government had effectively outlawed commerce within their boundaries. hadn't effectively outlawed commerce within their boundaries. This is the LeConte Lodge, built in 1926 and accessible by a series of hiking trails that wind up the side of a 6,500-foot Mount Conte. The Tennessee Lodge exists only because it was grandfathered in when the boundaries of the Great Smoky Mountain Parks were drawn in 1934. Farmers, logging companies, and other property owners in the area were given the boot. Thankfully, the lodge was allowed to stay. Nearly a century later, it's time for the federal government to recognize private investment need not be at odds with the goal of protecting nature for future generations. Ending the National Park Service will mean more facilities like LeConte Lodge can thrive and entice more Americans to experience the most beautiful parts of the country in new ways. For hikers, a trip to LeConte Lodge is like a step back through time. There's no electricity or running water, but a full meal and a real bed sure beats dehydrated backpack food and sleeping on the ground. For the price of an overnight stay in one of LeConte's dozen or so cabins, guests get a full dinner, including generous servings, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we'll move on. Facilities like this are an oddity in America, though it will sound more familiar to anyone who's hiked in the Alps, which are riddled with lodges that offer backpackers warm meals and beds in exchange for a fee. How can it be that we've allowed the Europeans to surpass us when it comes to outdoorsy capitalism? Some of the blame falls on mistakes that were made long ago, like the forced displacement of farmers and homesteaders in the land now occupied by the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and Shenandoah National Park in Virginia. Had they been allowed to stay, some might have converted their land to provide services and accommodations for hikers and other visitors wandering in the newly built trails nearby. Again, Europe offers a real-world example of what it might look like. Okay. And I don't want to promote any of these places that they're wanting to promote, so we can move on. That error can't be undone at this point. But rethinking how to best manage America's national parks could help alleviate the snarled traffic and storage of facilities that are evident at many of them. Not to say nothing of the $22 billion maintenance backlog at the National Park Service reported this summer. Okay, we can and I will say that the next couple chapters talks about how there are some luxury services in the National Park Service, but not enough luxury services. We need more luxury services. I want to remind people that it is factual that the National Park Service is a net gross. A net gross. Hundreds of millions are grossed for our states and nationally for the public park service to sustain. They are not currently a burden, but a benefit. They make money for our government through the services that are provided, such as when you go and you have to rent out a spot, but they still need support. They still need some federal funding. They also still require workers to freaking be there. So firing tens of thousands of federal workers is the aim for them to gut park services so that they can turn them into privatized retreats for rich people. So we're not going to be able to pay $15, $20, $30 to rent out a spot where we can go with our family. We can take our tents or our RVs. They're publicly maintained and we can enjoy that. And they're doing this right before summer commerce. Right before summer commerce. People are worried about places that they've already reserved. We're talking about things like family reunions. We're talking about fishing. We're talking about hiking. We're talking about the things that millions and millions and millions of Americans take advantage throughout the year, and especially during summer months, summer and spring, being gone. Youth service events. The amount of impact that this can have on areas where the National Park Service are critical to their infrastructure when it comes to tourism, places like Kentucky. They mentioned the Smoky Mountains. The Smoky Mountains, a huge draw is all of their national parks, their state parks, the commerce there. I live near Daniel Boone National Park. And so a lot of the lands here are protected. They're also protected from coal mining, which coal companies have been trying to open up forever, but it's one of the few places in Appalachia that are still protected. But it's where people can go to the many lakes that are in Kentucky, such as Cumberland Lake, Laurel Lake, several of the other, Red River Gorge, and people come from all over the country to enjoy these. Yellowstone Park, parks in Wyoming, parks in Utah, parks are all over the country that brings in commerce, that helps to keep these small towns economically stable. So there's another layer to this privatization. They're trying to make it where only the wealthy have access to the beautiful parts of our country, and where they can come in and completely destabilize these federal lands. And they're talking about doing the same. The Trump administration is talking about doing the same and aiming to do the same with indigenous lands as well. So if this should piss anybody off across the aisle from both parties, even MAGA, you should be pissed about this. They're going to take away your public parks. And every redneck I know around here would definitely sure as hell not be for that. And I know they didn't vote for that. They did not vote for the privatization and the selling off of our beautiful state parks and federal parks. It's not what they voted for. I have no doubt. And I don't know what's going to come of this, but it's not looking good. And we're also going to see, as people are losing their jobs because of tariffs, this flooding of unemployment rates into what's our patchwork economy now. It's basically all we can get is gig work and temp work. What's that going to look like? I recently went on TikTok and I started just looking for work. And I found hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of TikToks of people that have put in 2, 3, 4, 500 applications. I've been tracking mine, and I've now put in 1,900 in the last 2 years and still have not been able to find work. 1,900 applications. And I've only had about a dozen interviews. And I understand my political work makes it even harder for me, and my journalism makes it very hard to get work, because anytime anyone looks me up and they see that this is the kind of work I'm doing, it's risky to hire. But everything from Walmart to Costco to restaurants to actual works within their field, everyone is struggling to find work. And now we're going to have mass layoffs from the federal government across the board. Where are people going to work? This manufacturing hasn't been brought back yet. Where are people going to work? Where are they going to go? So this is bad. This is bad. And it's just going to continue getting worse. And then I do have one more story for you guys. And it is... So Bernie's been doing these tours, and we've covered several of them. If you guys want to go take a look at some of the live streams that Status Coup has done, I know Tina Desiree Berg has covered several of these events, as well as I know John Farina and Ashley Bishop have been on the ground as well. But if you're wondering where this is going, Bernie Sanders is once again reinventing the reformation of the Democratic Party model. You know, the whole Justice Democrats model that we already tried before. Do you care to pull up that link from us from Eric Katz? Sanders sent an email to his supporters recruiting candidates and held a Zoom call with people who are eyeing to run. Potential contenders 40 and under are being connected with Run for Something, which Run for Something's been kind of out of the scene for a while, just to let you guys know, which focuses on younger candidates, while others are working with organizations Contest Every Race and National Democratic Training Committee, Sanders' team has said. So what we're looking at is Bernie Sanders doing the Justice Democrats thing, the reformation of the Democratic Party. That could sound good on its face, But without any accountability, if we keep doing the same patterns over and over again, where, for instance, I remember in 2022, in 2021, actually, before I left Brand New Congress, I warned them about endorsing John Fetterman. I was like, Fetterman takes tons of money from AIPAC. He chased that one guy down. He chased a black guy down in his neighborhood, held him at gunpoint. This guy is not progressive. This guy is a wolf in sheep's clothing. And we're just going to have more of the same if we endorse this guy. And but there, everyone was like, but Dr. Oz would be far worse. It would be horrible. I completely agree that maybe he looked like the lesser of evil at the time, but how long are we going to do this shit? Where there's the lesser of two evilism, where we're funneling massive protest into just reforming the Democratic Party when that has been a failed experiment. What are they going to do different? I want to know what AOC and Bernie are going to do different this time. Because I tried this. I was a leader in the movement. I was never a Democrat, but I did support progressive Democratic candidates. More than 100 federal races I supported. Gave 90-hour work weeks toward this project for years. 4 years, more than 4 years, I was at Brand New Congress. I used to be the press director for Justice Democrats. We tried this, but there are massive barriers. So if you're not talking about the massive barriers to getting in office, how the Democratic Party will kick people off the ballot, and then they're doing this through official Democratic Party channels. Can you pull up that email one more time for me? Because I want to get the name of the committee that they're doing this through. Oh, they're doing it through the National Democratic Training Committee. And I'm going to tell you guys, I have dealt with the National Democratic Training Committee. These are the people that come from way up on high in DC, from Washington, that are the rich interns, the wealthy people that get to work with the members of Congress, who are so freaking out of touch with where we are. These are the kinds of people that have advised people like Kamala Harris to move to the right in order to get votes. And you can pull that down now, Colin, if you don't care. And to move to the right to get votes in order and completely, they have pounced on and will bury any progressive or leftist candidate. This committee will. They will push them to move to the right. What the hell is Bernie Sanders doing working with this committee to train these candidates to run? There's nothing in this statement about not taking dark money, about refusing super PAC money, which this committee will require them to do, about refusing to pay that $250,000 dues fee that the Democratic Party has for every single candidate that runs, which AOC, she just raised $9 million in a quarter. $9 million in a quarter. And she was bragging about that. She said that it shows a, shift in the zeitgeist. And her campaign manager was bragging that they already paid their $250,000 dues to the Democratic Party. Stop giving candidates like AOC your money. Representatives like AOC. $9 million, guys. Think about what that $9 million could do for on-the-ground union organizing. Think about what those $9 million can do for a robust organizing toward a general strike, or toward mutual aid, or toward community organizing, or toward independence running, or toward organizing boycotts. Why are we sending this much money, $9 million, to somebody like AOC who has a shoe-in for her seat anyway? Why are we giving her almost $10 million in a quarter? So now we get to see where Bernie Sanders was pulling all this momentum for all of these rallies, which he did say, we need to organize, we need to union organize, we need to do this, but now pulling it into races. When the Democratic Party left 65% of seats uncontested down ballot last cycle, when they've completely abandoned state houses, aren't building state parties nationwide. They're not building state parties. This last presidential election, there were only 320 county offices, Democratic Party county offices, out of 3,244 offices. So out of all the counties in the country, only 10% of the counties had Democratic Party county offices. Do you know how many counties have Republican county offices? 89%. The Democratic Party invest in 10% of on-the-ground, grassroots Democratic Party offices. The Republican Party, 89%. And there is still no plan in Bernie's plan. There is still no plan within the Democratic Party to do any kind of grassroots organizing, to take back these local seats. They're talking about AOC 2028. Holy shit, are we going to survive 4 more years? Are we going to make it to the midterms? How many people are going to lose their jobs? How many people are going to go houseless and hungry before midterms? And these out-of-touch Democrats want us to wait. Instead of organizing mass protests, mass movements, mass boycotts, taking local seats, finding other ways we can fight against it, it's wait till the midterms. And I'm sick of this shit. But anyway, we see where Bernie went with this. You can say, yes, having these rallies are a good thing. You know, I agree, bringing people out is a good thing. Funneling them back into the Democratic Party establishment while not holding the Democratic Party establishment accountable is not going to cut the mustard. It's not going to work. Because people sell out. People sell out when they get on the Hill. We have seen that. How many times have we seen that, guys? Most of the Democratic Party still supports this genocide in Gaza. They're doing abundance caucuses with Ezra Klein. And we're going to have that training committee that supports that bullshit, train these new candidates? No. This training committee, I'm telling you guys, when they come in, they gut progressive candidates' platforms in order for you to work with them. And Bernie Sanders is like, these are the people we need to organize with to train these candidates up through the Democratic Party establishment. So this is not an anti-establishment movement. All right. And I'm just as mad about other things, but I get really upset with what looks like a progressive or a leftist movement that is actually drags us backwards when we are in full-on fascism, when there is no real fight against the GOP, and it's disgusting, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of people being distracted and being pulled into the wrong direction by people who should know better. Because there is no opposition party. We have to be the opposition. We have to be the opposition. And until we realize there is no opposition party and we keep leaning on the Democrats to come in and save us, or we keep leaning on a savior like Bernie, we're not going to organize like we have to in this dire situation we are in right now. All right, Colin. Do we have any super chats?
Not today. A little bit of a slower day today.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for coming. If we could talk to them one more time, if we could tell everybody one more time about the whole membership tier thing, Colin, that we've got going on. We do have some discounts with our membership tiers. We're hoping to grow, and so we have some new members perks that Colin can tell you guys about.
Yeah, so our member perks are now, so in addition to everything else, if you're a $5 member, you'll now be getting, if you shop at our store, StatusCoup.com/store, you'll now be getting 8% off of your purchases if you use the discount code. If you're a $10 member, you get 13% off, and $20 member or the yearly member, you get 18% off. So make sure to go, and if you're already signed up, you just go to StatusCoup.com, click on or highlight the member tab, and you'll see the discount button there to copy and paste your code. And this is currently only available through our website, StatusCoup.com/join. So if you're a member somewhere else, you can always just cancel that and transfer over if you want the additional perk there as well.
Thank you so much, Colin. And Denise, no worries. You super chat all the time, and you being here is enough. And we appreciate your support so much. You're awesome. We love you. No need to apologize for not being able to super chat. We know what it's like to have the funds directed elsewhere, and we completely understand. So liking, sharing, or just joining in on the conversation makes a huge difference, and we're always grateful to see you here. And I guess that we'll close out. You guys can find me on Bullhorn Bulletin Substack. It'll be down in the description. I am working on a project with Punch Up Pod. If you guys have heard of that, it is with Pat Cote and Lila Charles Lee, and Pat Cote from Punch Up Pod, and we are working on a project called the Broligarchy, and it will be a multi-part series. We just released our first episode, Meet the Fuckers, this Sunday. So every Sunday at 8 p.m. you can check us out. Our next one will be going over the surveillance state and talking about how AI has been used in places like how AI is being expanded, but also how police militarization in places like Cop City are now being used in order to, along with what we have seen from Israel, and how those apartheid practices are now being brought back home, but also how that ties into the greater plan for a techno monarchy that these crazy broligarchs have, and how that's tied to things like privatized cities and company towns that they want to roll out, where they creating their own kingdoms and fiefdoms. And there's a million layers to this. We go over Praxis. We'll be going over Peter Thiel's plans in multiple episode series and doing a massive deep dive. So please go check out our first episode. It'll be up on my Substack as well as up on my YouTube. And join us next Sunday at 8 p.m. if you'd like to see more. And I'll be rolling out more and be doing more work and help with Status Coup whenever needed. It was really great to see everyone today. I hope that you guys have an excellent weekend. And sorry that I didn't have more good news for you today, but I hope everyone does well. And it was great seeing everybody. And please sign up.